Well, as I mentioned before the break, Washington State was one of the first in the union to really see signs of this pandemic as it spread across a nursing home in that state. It was also one of the first states to shut down. We are joined now by the mayor of Seattle, Jenny Durkan, about what happens now and the process of reopening and the challenges that are facing her city and her state as well. Mayor Durkan, thank you for joining us. Our own Akiko Fujita is also joining us for this conversation. So Mayor, talk to me about the reopening process now, because this has really been the central question over the past several days. What is going to be necessary? What are the signs you're looking for in order to start to reopen?
Yeah, and I think it's very hard because, we've become a very automated society. We have microwaves. We expect things to happen quick, breaking news, instant this. And the shutdown was so abrupt that I think in some people's minds, as they get fatigued, they think we can reopen with the same magic wand, and we can't. We've got to look at a series of things. Number one, the virus is going to control how and when we can open and how we stay open. The protests across the nation, you might as well protest the tides coming in. There is science and there's physics. And so we have to really look, do we have enough? Have we had a trajectory of a downward trend long enough? And do we have a low enough base that we feel comfortable that our hospital system could sustain a rise in virus? Two, do we have the capability to really determine whether we have that rise? And so that requires broad-based ability to test and the broad-based ability to contact trace. And then three, how do we make sure that our hospital system doesn't get overwhelmed? And remember, virus takes about 2 weeks. So when you open up, people could get infected. It'll take about 2 weeks before you see the impact. So we're going to have to do it gradually. We're going to have to go almost sector by sector with plans on how they conduct their businesses in a more safe manner. We had a really interesting example here in the Northwest where we had a fishery industry decide that they couldn't miss the fishing season off the coast of Alaska. So they required everyone that was getting on that ship to come to the Seattle area, spend 2 weeks quarantined in a hotel, no exceptions, monitored every day for symptoms, could not get on the ship unless they did that. So we're really going to have to be smart about how we open up. We know we have to do it. People want to come back together. We want an economy going, but we would be devastating to open and then have to precipitously close again.
Mayor, we have seen one of the big employers there, Boeing, resume operations this week. And, you talked about some of the protests that we've seen. We saw some protesters over at the state capitol over the weekend point to Boeing and say, look, here's one company that's reopening. They've got face masks in place. They're doing temperature checks. They're staggering their start times. What do you say to those who say, well, if it's good enough for Boeing to take those cautions and those precautions, why can't other businesses reopen with the same precautions in place?
So we've been trying to monitor, and I have to give Governor Inslee a lot of credit for this because he's making his decisions not based just on pressure and political protest, but really what is the science showing. And in reopening Boeing, which remember is an essential business because they're manufacturing things we need not just for our economy, but for our national defense, they changed how they did business. But we're going to have to watch how that operates. I've talked many times to the mayor of the city of Everett, and Boeing is a big influencer on how the health is in that whole community. So again, we open, we monitor, we watch, and if it's not working well, then we have to take some different steps.
Mayor, last time we spoke, you mentioned the tech companies in the city is one of the reasons you were able to adapt so quickly to that stay-at-home order. Companies like Amazon and Microsoft just outside of Seattle were able to move their employees right away to work from home. And I'm wondering, as you look at sector by sector, which ones are going to open, could you see a process here where some of the big tech names will continue to work from home for 3 months and 4 months while you get those like a Boeing to continue to open up their operations? How are you viewing those options?
We have discussions underway with them and with an organization called Challenge Seattle, which is the conglomeration of all the largest employers in the Seattle region, Microsoft, Boeing, Starbucks, Amazon, and really talking to see how do we adjust. So we, for example, the city of Seattle, we're looking right now at how we would continue our telecommute practices for longer duration in order to take some of the pressure off the ability for people to communicate the virus. And I think that I can't say enough about how quickly our large employers acted. Fortunately, we had those employers that could work from home, but we had a lot of people who couldn't. Our small businesses, our manufacturing sectors were hit a lot harder. And so in bringing those sectors back, we have to be really balancing against, are there some who can continue to telecommute while we look and open up those others that can't? But it's all interconnected. When Amazon started telecommuting, the small businesses around Amazon were some of the first to close even before our stay-at-home order. So as you know, we're now, I will give Mayor Garcetti of Los Angeles credit for what I'm about to say, but we're all in a new phase, and it's called economics. We have to look at the epidemiology and the economics, and that's how we have to make our decisions.
Mayor, I want to ask you a little bit more about the economics, because we're just seeing reports now that the administration and Congress have come to some sort of agreement on the next tranche of stimulus for folks, and that it would be another $250 billion to go into the Paycheck Protection Program. What have you been hearing from your small businesses in Seattle, and have they been able to get access to that first slice of the funding? And how important do you think the second slice is going to be for them?
I think it's critical to get the second slice of funding, but the most critical thing is we got to get that money actually in the hands of our small business owners so they can continue. And what we've seen, and it was very slow and cumbersome for people to identify and apply for this, hard for them to get. Many of our small businesses, by the time they got there, the particular bank they dealt with was already tapped out. And so the delivery system is as important as the policy. You know, we in the city of Seattle found that we did a very early program for our small businesses, similar $10,000 checks, but we were able to get them delivered to people as quickly as possible because the speed at which you give this money, the stimulus, the relief is going to determine whether we come through this in a way that we can actually rebuild our economy and at what pace we can rebuild it.
Mayor, it's Adam Shapiro. I was curious. There's worry that the muni bond market is getting very tight for states as well as cities like yours as they go out to, let new bonds and raise money. What does the federal government need to do? Because they haven't yet addressed that issue of helping states and cities get past this crisis financially.
We absolutely are going to need some assistance there. We have a very high credit rating, but like every city in America, our revenues have been slashed. In order to meet some of our shortfalls, we're looking at a range of things from debt financing to others, but we can't afford to lose our credit rating. So we're going to need the federal government to step in, not just like the Fed has done to buy the municipal bonds, but we're going to have to need some relaxation of some of the standards about us being able to borrow and have money available to cities to borrow. Remember, we're the front lines. We are delivering those basic services that are keeping America healthy right now. And we're the first hurt. We rely on sales tax and businesses tax. And if you close down those two things, cities close down. So we're quickly going to need more assistance from the federal government at every town across America, because without that, America cannot come back.
Mayor, finally, very quickly, a question I've been asking of a lot of city leaders, especially on the West Coast. Homelessness has been a big issue well before all of this happened, but I'm curious how much worse you think it's going to get as a result of all the job cuts, all of those who are likely to be evicted, they can't afford rent, and what exactly is the city doing to prepare for that influx?
So you're absolutely right. The very first conversations we had about this when we were looking at what the implications could be with the federal government and the state government was we needed more assistance to help people who were currently homeless. But we knew we had as a city to move quickly to have all the programs addressed so more people would not become homeless through this catastrophic economic event. So we put a prohibition on any eviction, residential evictions, as well as small businesses and nonprofits to try to keep people in place. We also said that we would not cut off any utilities during this period of time and are looking at how we also make sure that people won't incur late fees and the like and come out in debt. The state has also put those in place. I think that's why when Congress acts, it's so critical that they actually get money into the pockets of every American, not just to the businesses, which is important, but the Americans who have lost their jobs, who are struggling through this so they can put food on their table and stay in their homes. And it's going to have to be at a scale that this country has never seen or done before, or we will see problems. So I'm really hoping that money, the unemployment money and everything starts to flow in a meaningful way and that we can sustain it. as we open up this economy. But no one expects that we can flip a switch and that our economy will recover immediately. And Seattle had one of the best economies in the world, not just in the nation. Fortunately, we were diversified enough that we continue to have some economy, but we're hurting here too.
Yeah, obviously no one is immune from this. Mayor Jenny Durkan of Seattle, thank you so much for your time. And speaking of that unprecedented stimulus that we have to devote to this, it looks like, as we were talking about, the next slice of this is on its way because President Trump is tweeting about it. We're seeing reports about it, that indeed Congress and the White House have come to an agreement on another $500 billion worth of stimulus, half of that to go into refunding that Paycheck Protection Program because so many people were not yet able to take advantage of that.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.